When it comes to starting a website, it's always good to have some form of UI, UX, like design picked out and kind of have some theme that you're working towards, because otherwise you typically end up with kind of a scattered design. And so a really good way to do that is to go to behance.net, and they have this full website of just possible designs that you can look through. You can choose your theme, you can choose your colors, you can choose what type of website you're looking for. And so I've already picked one out for tonight. It's just kind of a dark theme. I prefer dark themed websites. And so we're going to kind of start with a simple portfolio type dark themed website. And we're going to build this out of JavaScript and HTML. And so to get started, the first thing that we kind of need to do is have an IDE of some form. Now, an IDE is what allows you to write programming languages in an efficient manner. So you can take like TextEdit if you're on Mac or Notepad on Windows and write code in there. But a code editor will allow you to visualize your code in an easier way, and it makes things a little bit more efficient. So my recommendations, I personally use Atom. So you'll see me using Atom right here. Unfortunately, Atom has been kind of put on the shelf by the company that designed it. And so they actually don't support Atom anymore. And so because of that, my recommendations would be to either get Wing IDE. This is the IDE that I actually started on. And they have a free personal version that you can get. It's a pretty powerful tool. It's got a terminal inside of it and a lot of tools you can use. The second option, and this is by far the most popular option, is Visual Studio Code. This is what, like, if you join Bethel, this is what they'll recommend. Excuse me. And it's a far more powerful tool than Wing is. I just have a preference for the more simpler side of things, which is why I like Atom. It's kind of like just a big text editor. It's very simple, and that's what I prefer. So with that in mind, we're gonna get started. We're just gonna tackle this. Now, these are all ingredients. We're gonna talk through. Let's see, just a second.
I played with him.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I've got a folder already with some icons that I've picked out. Now, for website icons, there's this website called FreePick. And not FreePick, sorry, Flat Icon. Flat Icon that I actually really like. If you want to download a lot of icons, or you want to use it in professional manner, you have to pay. But for free stuff, you can typically just use the icons for free, and you can search for just about anything, like a save icon. And you can choose between all these different options and download whatever icon you want. And so my recommendation for icons is use Flat Icon. Then if you're looking for just generic images, unsplash.com. Oops, I've got Zoom popping up everywhere. Okay. Unsplash.com is great for just kind of stock images, and so is pexels.com. So those are just a few tools that you can use to download all kinds of different images and backgrounds and icons. And these are what I use for a lot of websites as well. So for this website, we're going to get started just building a core website. We're just going to start at the absolute basics. And we're going to do this in a library called ReactJs. So ReactJs is a library with JavaScript that allows you to build user interfaces. And they have a really good documentation, if you go into docs, on how to get started and all of that. So I recommend, if you're interested in this, follow along with ReactJS, look through the documentation. There's a lot of powerful stuff you can do with it. With that in mind, I'm going to open a terminal. I'm on a Mac, so this may look a little bit different if you are on a Windows. But I'm going to go into this folder that I've created really quick. Let's go to workshop. And I'm going to run a command to create the React projects. We're going to do npx create React app, and then the title or the name of the site that I want to create. So I'm just going to name this portfolio. And we'll let this run for a second. And as you can see, it creates a portfolio folder. And then it's going to create a lot of files within that folder to allow us to just kickstart this. So it may take a second. And there we go. So now if we go into portfolio, we'll see a lot of different stuff happening here. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Most of it we're going to ignore for the time being. So we're going to move into the portfolio folder. Now, what React does is it'll actually create a basic generic website to start us off with. And so we're going to run just a simple yarn install. And then once it's installing some packages and libraries that React uses. You can also use an npm install. I prefer the yarn for the package manager. So yarn and npm are package managers. They are what allows you to install different packages and tools and kind of like add-ons for your website. And then I'm going to run yarn start. So super simple commands. And just like that, we already have a website started off. Now you can see it's a super basic, simple website. It's not a whole lot of stuff happening here. But we're going to modify this. Now, the reason I like React is it's simple to use. It uses JavaScript, and it also makes navigation really easy. So if we want buttons and links, it makes that process pretty simple. And so we're going to open up our code editor, and we're going to open our source folder, and then we're going to go to app.js. And we're going to go ahead and open app.css as well. Now on app.js, you'll actually see some HTML happening here. This is all HTML with a little bit of JavaScript inserted. And this is the code that displays or that runs this web page. So I'm going to kind of go side by side so you can watch as I go along. Now, the cool thing about ReactJs 2 is that as we make changes, on this and save them, we'll automatically see those reflected on our website. And Jennifer, in response to your question, who is a website host? The website that we're building right now is going to be hosted on your own computer. And I'll show you some options on how to host it on an actual platform towards the end once we have something worth sharing to the world. For now, this is just, as you can see, it's a local host. It's running off of our own computer. And so it's not accessible by the world just yet. Now, if I change, say, edit to, let's actually just go ahead and change all of this line right here. And this is to show an edit. I'm going to save that with Command S. And you can see it almost immediately updates on the website. So this makes it really useful for development because as we're making changes, we get to see those changes happening on our website. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to delete all of this because I want to start with a kind of a blank, fresh page. And then we're going to look at our app.cs and we're going to get rid of the logo. We're going to just kind of get rid of some of the initial things that they provide. In fact, I'm going to get rid of all of that except for .app. And then we're going to get started on this. Now, I'm going to show you actually my personal website really quick, and you'll see this is my personal website. And this was all built with ReactJs. Okay, so I'm going to probably take some snippets from this code, just kind of make things a little bit faster. For instance, the navigation stuff, I'm going to pull probably, I believe it, I have it downloaded. There it is. And we're going to go source app.js. So I'm going to copy some of my navigation because it's a little bit simpler to do that. One of the packages that we're going to need for our website is React Router DOM. And so I'm going to copy that, go to my terminal, and I'm going to stop the server with Control-C. I'm going to run yarn install, and then the package that we want to install. In this case, it's React Router DOM, and that'll allow us for navigation. Oops, yarn add React Router DOM. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and run a yarn start again, and that'll get it back up and running. So now it's not going to do a whole lot. And let me see if I can get Zoom out of my way. This is a little annoying. Okay. So we're gonna copy the import statement here that I have. So we're gonna import the browser router, the routes, and some links. And then Zoom is still in my way, and I can't see the top. Let's see if I can. Okay, I was able to switch over. So we're gonna paste that import statement to our current website. I'm gonna save that, and then. Okay, I'm gonna shrink this down just so I can see it with the Zoom. There we go. Okay, it might look a little funky on you guys. Zoom has this big drop down bar that's in my way, so I'm gonna work around it. And then we're gonna copy our router. Now, this is a pretty simple route setup that I have for my own website. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just copy all of that. I'm going to paste it in my current website, and we're gonna get rid of the startup one. And we're just gonna take this and we're gonna name this as home. So what this is gonna do is our website can have different routes, such as a URL, or the one that I just deleted would have looked something like this. But what we want is for a blank route to go to our home page. We don't have our home page yet, but we will shortly. And the website that I was at is poyadev.com. That's my personal website for business. And that's the one we're kind of basing some of this off of. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to create a page for this home. Because right now this home, if we save this, is going to actually break. And I'm going to show you this error that we get. See, home was not defined because we haven't created this home element yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to import, let's see, what is it? I believe it's just simply React. Let's go there. No, that's not the one I was looking at. Okay, I'm going to import a few of these things. We're going to use some of this. I'll explain some of this a little bit later, but for now, I'm just going to copy and paste. And then we're going to do an export default function. And this is going to be our home. And let me verify that is correct. Export default function. Yep. And then semicolon. We're going to save that. Now we're going to save that to our workshop. So where is that? Workshop and then portfolio, because that's the React app that we've created. Then go to source. And we're going to save it. We're actually going to create a new folder in here, kind of like you saw on my other website with pages. So these are going to be the different pages for our website. I'm going to name this home.js. So with React, your pages are going to be a JavaScript file. And so you're going to use a .js extension. And we're going to save that. Now, this isn't going to do anything at the moment because we're not returning anything to our initial page. And so we're going to do just a simple return. And we're going to return a simple HTML element called a div. Now our div is kind of like a container. It's a divider, it's a container, whatever you want to call it. But basically it's kind of what separates the content on a website. And we're just going to do a blank setup there. And then we're going to import this file on our app.js file. So we're going to do import home. And I might need some curly brackets around that. We'll see from, and then we're going to import this from the pages folder. Because remember we created a folder and then home.js and add a semicolon, save. And now there is no more error because it's importing this file. Now, to show you that it's actually importing from this file, we're just going to add a quick paragraph text element. So P is going to be your paragraph text. And we're going to write, this is paragraph text. Save that, and you'll see it pop up right there. Now, if we go to some other URL, such as, let's go to portfolio. It shows nothing because we don't have a portfolio URL set up just yet. And so, and we probably won't, most of this will all be a one-page application, sort of like what we see here on Behance. So the first step we're going to do on our new home page is we are going to change the background color to a similar color of this. Now, you can use a website called, I believe it's colorhex.com. Yep. We're going to choose, I'm just going to choose this first one right here. And we're going to create some CSS to style everything that's in here. So we're going to do div class name equals, and we're just going to name this as page wrapper. Now, class name allows us to use different CSS classes. We can also do a div element class, but for customization, we're going to do a class name. I'm going to show you how this works. So we're going to open our app.css file. And we're going to create a new class in here called page wrapper. And we're going to set the background color to that color code that I just copied from our website, from the colorhex.com website. Now, if we update this, we're not going to see a change yet because we're not importing this app.css file yet. And so on the home page, we're going to do an import. Actually, let's see. Actually don't think I need to. I actually should not have to import that separately. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the size for this. We're going to do a width 100 VW. So VW is going to be your viewing width, which means the entire width of the window is going to be the width, and then the height is going to be 100 VH for the viewing height. I'm going to save that. We're going to save our home page as well. Now you can see that most of our page is grayed out. Now, there's a little element here that's grayed out, and that's most likely because of the initial. Actually, let's see. So that actually should not be there. So we're going to right click. Now, here's a tool that you're going to use a lot when developing a website. If you right click on a page and go to inspect, you'll see this cool tool over here that allows you to see everything that's on the website. It also allows you to see the CSS styling that's being applied. And then you can also see different things that like console and network, which I use a lot. I don't know if we'll have time to get into those specifically, but for now, Elements is a great tool. If you select the little highlight button, you can highlight over different elements. So if we highlight over this white part, we can see that the white part is actually going to be probably our HTML page. And then this paragraph text has a margin on it. You can see that by the yellow. And if we click on it, we can see a margin on it here. So we're going to do some styling to kind of clean that up really quick. The first one is going to be an HTML. And that is going to be to change, basically copy the page wrapper styling, and then same with the body element. And body is an HTML specific tag as well. And so now you can see it cleaned up that text, or not the text, the page. So now we have this kind of gray background to work with. There's not a whole lot there at the moment. It's also not really as dark as I'd like. So I'm going to choose a slightly darker color by clicking on it. And I might have to expand this. There we go. We'll click the little drop down. And we're going to just make this a little darker. We're going to copy that. I want to set it to there. Save that, and we should see that. There we go. So that's a little bit better. It's a little bit darker, closer to what we're looking for. And if we go to our Behance kind of design that we're following, the next step is going to be creating this header up here. And so to start with that on our home page, now I'm going to show you just kind of how to do everything in one file. When you go to do this on a complex website, style, you'll actually end up splitting up elements. I simply just don't have the time to explain how to do that. In fact, I only have about an hour left of this. So I'm going to show you how to just kind of code everything into one big JavaScript file. And then at another time, if you take the class and stuff, we'll probably cover how to split up into different elements and make things a little bit more scalable and easy. So that way you don't have copy paste code like in this CSS. But for now, we're just going to get rid of our paragraph text and we're going to create another div element. Class name equals header wrapper. So this is going to be our heading up at the top with our menu in it. /div. We're going to close off the div tag there. Now in our header, we have a logo and we have a few buttons. So we're going to do a div element with a class name equals logo wrapper. Now, logo wrapper, like the wrapper elements that I'm using, those are simply going to be like the outermost container that holds that content. And then we'll have some other div elements that are inside of the wrappers. But for now, we're going to do that. And we're going to create another empty div class name menu button wrapper. Here's out the div. And then they have a search box here. So we're going to go ahead and add that as well. So we're going to do one more div element class name equals search wrapper. Now, if we save this, we're not going to see anything really happen on our front end because there's really still not any content. Div elements just simply help maintain the layout of something. And so if we inspect this, we probably still won't see a whole lot, but if we drop down in our elements, we'll see our different div containers here. And so our next step is going to be to style some of those. So that way we can actually visualize those. What I'm going to do is our header wrapper is going to be the next one we create. So we're going to do in the CSS file .header wrapper. And then we are going to set this. Oops. So there you go. We're going to set this to a flex display for now. So we're going to do a display flex. And then we're going to do a flex direction. It's going to be a row. So what we want, HTML typically by default stacks things as blocks. So you have top, next, it's just top to bottom blocks. And we want things to be in a row instead of a top to bottom column. And so our flex display and flex direction row allows us to lay out the elements of the header in a side-by-side format instead of a, being on top of each other. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the width of this to 100 VW because again, we want it to stretch the entire width of our page. And we want the height somewhere around 70 pixels for now. So we're going to do a 70 px for 70 pixels. And what this does, let's go ahead and set a different background color just so you guys can see this happening. So we're just going to set it to white. It's going to look hideous, but I just want you to see what's kind of happening here. So you can see that as we resize things, it's going to maintain 100% of the width. And we have this little menu up top. So I'm going to delete the background color because again, we're trying to match this. Now we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and focus on our logo wrapper. And so we're going to do a .logo wrapper. And we're going to set the width of this to about 30%. Or let's go, let's actually do about 20. I'm trying to figure out the ratios here. Yeah, it's about 30%. We'll do 30% here. And then the height is going to be 100%. Now, what does this mean? This means that the logo wrapper is going to take up 30% of the width of the container that's inside of. So logo wrapper is inside of header wrapper. So our logo wrapper is going to take up 30% of the width of our header wrapper. So if I save this and let's open this up a little bit, go to this select, you can see that our logo wrapper is a container right there. That's taking up about 30% of our space. I'm going to do the same for our, what was the other one? Let's see, menu button wrapper. I'm just going to copy and paste. But I want this to have a width of about 40%. And then we're going to have a search wrapper that'll be 30%. So now we have 30%, 30% that makes 60 plus 40%. Now we have 100% of our width taken up by containers. And if we refresh, we'll see that here we have different elements. Now I'm actually going to, I think, make those smaller. So we're going to go 25, 50, and 25. And now you can see we have our different containers for the layout of our buttons set up. So now inside of our logo wrapper, we're gonna add an image here. And I actually have a logo. I just need to find it. There it is. Let's see, logo. I'm gonna copy that. And go to our workshop folder. And inside of portfolio, so now we're going to create an assets folder. And that's going to store all of our images and icons. So I'm going to paste the icon there. And we're going to import that into our files. We're going to import. We're going to name it. I think without curly brackets. Let's go logo from .. slash. So .. will move us back one folder. So for this file is currently inside the pages folder, we want to go back one folder and then into our assets folder. And we're going to select logo dot, let's see, what was it? Logo 512.png. We're going to save that, and then we're going to create an image element here. img source equals logo. I want to just close it off. Now, what this will do is this will actually create an image that's probably the entire size of the logo. Let's find out. Yeah. So it creates a really massive logo because we haven't sized it yet. And so we're going to set our class name for our image to being logo. And then in our CSS, we're going to create a new class, make some space here, dot logo. And we're going to set a height and a width. So height is going to be 100%. And then we're going to actually leave the width because the width should change to the width should automatically kind of change itself to keep the aspect ratio of the logo. Now you'll see that in our container, the logo just kind of sits on the left side. We want to bring it in a little bit. We might even center it. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to center it in that box. So what we can do is on our logo wrapper box, which is right here, we're going to set the display to a flex direction, and we're going to align and justify the content to center. So justify content and save that, and you'll see it kind of moves to more the middle of that box. So now we have our logo up, and we're going to add our buttons. So we have an about, a portfolio, and a contact button. And we're going to actually use a div element for these buttons. So we're going to go div class name equals menu button. And then for the text, we're just going to set it as an H6 text. Now, with HTML, you have 6 types of heading text that you can use. You have H1, which is your biggest main, like primary text. Then you have H2, which is a little bit smaller, H3, a little bit smaller, and all the way down to H6. So we're going to use our H6 and then we're going to modify it to a format we like. But for now, we're just going to set it to about, close off the H6. Then we're going to copy and paste this a couple of times to create our other buttons. We're going to change this to portfolio and then contact. We're going to save that. And you'll see 3 text items here. Now, again, you'll see them top to bottom because we haven't told this container, the menu button wrapper, to be a flex box. And so we're going to do display flex and a flex direction to row. And now you'll see it's kind of hard to see them. Let's go ahead and change the color of the menu button to just a white. So a plain color element here in CSS will do the text color, and then background color is how you change the background colors. You'll see background color, and then you'll see just color here. And we're just going to set it to white so you can see. So now you can see they're kind of smashed together, and we're going to fix that here. The first thing I want to do though is I want to center these buttons again, kind of like we did with the logo. So we're going to go to our menu button wrapper, and we're going to set the justify and align items to the center. So justify and align will set items to center either horizontally or vertically. By doing both of these, we're going to set it both horizontally centered and vertically centered. We're going to save that, and now they are centered. They still look kind of terrible, and we'll fix that. I actually also prefer an all caps type of menu button. So I'm going to change these really quick to all caps. I'm going to save that, and you'll see it changes, but again, they're really smashed together. So what we can do to separate them out is to create a margin on them. And so on our menu button, we're going to do a margin left of say 10 pixels. We'll see how this looks. And then a margin right of 10 pixels as well. So on the left side and the right side, it's going to create kind of a buffer between content. And you'll see how it kind of separated those buttons out a little bit. Now we still have some space to take up, and these are really small buttons. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change the font size to say 15px. Let's see how that looks. Oh, that's actually smaller. So let's go with 20px. And that's decent. I still want to go a little bit bigger. Let's go 23. And so now we have a few things, but right now it's just text content. Like it doesn't show that it's clickable. And we can actually change the cursor when you hover over something. And so we're going to set the cursor to a pointer on this and save that. Now, when I hover over them, you can see when I hover, it changes the cursor. So that way users know that, hey, that is a button right there. Now, if I spread this out, you'll see how the buttons kind of stay together, and they're still not spaced out very, very well. So I'm going to do a slightly larger margin of say 15px. And now they're a little bit spaced out. So this looks full screen. And it's not terrible. They obviously have a much taller header, so we can fix that really quick. Let's go to our header wrapper and change the height to 100 pixels. So now we have a slightly taller header. And that's currently what our website looks like. We have a couple of buttons. Now, if you want to change the font of these, you can with a font family, element. And let's set it to serif for now. Serif is kind of your old school typewriter type content, and then the sans serif is going to be more of your modern bubblier or bubbly text. Now, one thing to note is on dark themed websites, you actually don't want to use a pure white because it causes some contrast issues. And so what we want to do is we're going to go to this color that we have for the background. We're going to see if we can find a color that'll work for text. So let's go with the lightest tint of that same color. And so instead of a white color for a menu button, we're going to change it to this hex key of color. And you probably didn't see a whole lot of difference. Let me minimize this and we'll go back to white. And you can see how it kind of brightens up. And when I change it, it dims down a little bit. It's a little bit easier on the eyes. It's a little bit more comfortable. And we can probably change our buttons to be slightly larger as well, or font size. Let's go 27. And for now, that'll work. Another option you can do for margin is you can actually use a percentage. So say we do a 5% margin. That's going to be a 5% of the total width of the space it has. And what a percentage allows you to do is it'll change as the window is resized. So as the window is resized, you can see the gap between the buttons changes. And so for responsive websites, it's actually better to use a percentage base than it is a fixed pixel size. You can also change things so when the screen gets a certain size, you can see how it starts overlaying the logo a little bit. There's a way with what's called a media query to set sizes based off of screen width. We're not going to cover that right now because I don't have the time. But you can search W3 Schools is a great tool for this. So W3 Schools and look at the media query. And it'll show you kind of how to use it and the syntax of it. And it'll give you also examples, like you can try it yourself. So that's a great tool to use if you're learning HTML and CSS and you're curious about some of the functions you can do. And then the last thing we have on our header is a search box. And so let's go to this. So they have this search box here that we want to recreate. Now, in our search wrapper, we're going to create another div element, class name. Actually, not a div element. My apologies. We're going to do an input. Type equals text. I believe this is right. It's been a while since I've used an input in this way. Then we're going to do a class name equals search box. And then placeholder equals search. Let's just see what this does. I might be a little bit incorrect on the syntax. Okay, so we have a search box. Obviously, it looks hideous, right? It looks like a typical unstyled search box. So again, the first thing we want to do is we want to center that in the search wrapper. So we're going to just kind of copy some things here. We don't need the flex direction though. And we're missing a semicolon. There we go. So now it's centered and in line. The width of it, we're actually going to set to 100% of the wrapper. So that way, as it grows, it'll change. And actually, we'll probably go a little bit. We'll go probably. Actually, I like the width of it right now, so we'll probably keep that. So let's see, search box. So let's create a new CSS class for search box. Now, one thing to note with CSS, and I probably should have mentioned this beforehand, is you can actually kind of cheat a little bit. There's a tool called Bootstrap that allows you to kind of template things a little bit and write CSS faster. And so you have a lot of options for creating themes and grids and various things. It's like a big, huge theme for your HTML website. There you go. And so if you're like, hey, I want to build this website super fast and not have to write all the CSS, I'd recommend looking into Bootstrap. I'm not going to cover that right now, but just know that that is a tool that exists and can be helpful. So now we're going to find a shade of this background color for our search box. And we're going to go to the darkest. Let's see, that's the one we're using. So we're going to go to the next step down. So we're going to do a background color of that. Then we're going to do a foreground color or our font as the same of our menus or menu objects. We're going to save that. And now you can see the background is changed and the color of the text is also different. But we're going to get rid of this border now because borders are ugly in this scenario. So we're going to do a border. None. I believe it actually might be let's see, I think it's none. Yep, and that got rid of our border. However, we still have a border when we select it. So what we can do is there's a CSS tool called active. We do leave that is right. I'm going to do border of none as well. Actually, we're just going to copy everything over. And now let's see. Okay, that was not the one I wanted. Perhaps it's selected. No, let's see. After, before. Let's try selection. That didn't do it. So let's do a quick Google search. Oh, actually, I believe, let's see, I already tried active. So move border of active HTML, or let's change that to selected HTML input box. And let's see. So it's focus. Okay. And then we're going to change outline to none as well. So focus. Then on both of these, we're going to do outline none as well. So now when we click it, it shouldn't change much. Now, obviously, our box still looks a little bit different than the one we're shooting for. This one's a little bit taller, a little bit more padded. And so we are going to add some padding. Now, what padding does is padding creates basically a margin inside of the box. So it'll make the box bigger. So that way there's more space between the edge of the box and the content inside of it. Margin will push will make the box smaller, so if it's further away from what's outside of it. So for this, we want a padding, and we're going to do just like a 10 pixels is probably way too much, but I'm going to show you. So you can see how it created kind of some space between the content on the inside and the outside of the box. And it actually wasn't all that bad for padding. And then the last thing I want to do is I'm going to add a tighter radius, or a bigger radius rather, to the box. So we're going to do a border radius. And let's try 10 pixels, probably too much. Actually, that looks pretty decent. So you can see how it rounded the corners of our search box. Now, if you wanted to go all the way, you could do a 50%, which is going to be, actually, that wasn't right. Let's see, what is it? Is it 25? Nope. Okay. Then we're going to change it to 50 pixels, probably be really weird. Okay. So we can change it to make it completely circular. In this case, I'm going to go back to 10 pixels because it's kind of a good in between, I think. So now we have this header done for our portfolio website and not a whole lot of content, but we have some buttons that do nothing currently and a search box that also currently does nothing. And I'm going to check for questions. Okay, we are good. Does anybody have any questions that you want me to answer right now? If you do, you can post them in the chat. I can take a second and answer anything. Okay, I'm not seeing anything come through. If you are sending a question, go ahead and just send it and I'll stop once I get it. So now we're going to focus on the content of our page. Now you can see there's kind of this big, huge image of this guy. There's some text and a contact me button. So I have an image already set up for this of myself. And it's kind of an image of me leaning against a tree, but I cut it out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this to the left side of the page. So it looks like I'm kind of leaning against the side of our website. Question MD. This is set to go to 7. I'm going to shoot for kind of finishing up in about 30 minutes. I don't want to take too much of y'all's time. Do you need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to take the course? No. So the course is going to actually cover HTML, CSS, and JavaScript like foundations. They asked me to kind of create a workshop and just kind of go through what's possible when you know those things. But if you take the course, you'll actually learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you don't need to know any of that when you come into the course, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm gonna get started just adding my image to our website. So on our homepage, we're gonna import. I actually need to move that image into our website files to assets. So I'm gonna copy this here. Import profile pic from profile portrait.png. I want to copy the image tag that we already have. And then let's see. Okay, so we have our heading. So I'm gonna kind of smash all this together. And that right there is gonna be our heading slash and menu content. And then down below, we're gonna start our hero section content. Now the hero section of a website, if you ever hear that stated, it's gonna be like your top kind of main section of your website. So we're going to create a div with a class name of hero wrapper. Close off the div element. And we're going to insert our image here. This is going to be our profile pic. Now again, if I just save this, let's see. Cannot resolve. So I typed something wrong. You might have to restart because we added that image. So let's go and restart this. And okay, I probably have a typo in there that I'm not seeing. Let's copy the file name. Oh, I had a typo in there. Okay, so as you can see, it creates this massive image of me, and we're going to fix that right here. So our hero wrapper, we want it to be basically the entire height of a user's screen minus the header. I'm going to put this in some JavaScript tags so that way it doesn't show up in the HTML. Okay, so our hero wrapper is going to be, there's this cool thing. So we're going to do height. It's going to be a calculation of 100 VH. So the 100% of the viewing height minus the height of our header. Now, if you look up here, we have a header height. Where is it? Of 100 pixels. So we're going to do a calculation of 100 viewing height minus 100 pixels. What that'll do is that'll allow this to take up the space between the header and the bottom of the user's screen. And then we're going to also set a minimum height because sometimes users have really weird screens or they're on their phone and it looks weird. So we're going to set a minimum height of say actually let's do 800 px. And then our image right here, profile pic. Profile pic. Oops. We're going to do a height of, let's try 80% of our hero section. And as you see, now it looks like I'm just sitting there leaning against the left side of the website. And then let's, okay, Daniel, there you go. Now another thing you can do for the height, if you're worried about content going too tall, you can actually set a max height element where it won't allow it to go taller than that. For this, I don't think I need to. And then the other thing we're going to do on our hero wrapper, is we're going to set the display to flex with a flex direction of row again, because we want to set up content from left to right. So our image on the left and then everything else will be on our right side in another box. So let's go ahead and create the hero section content inside of our hero wrapper. So div class name equals hero section content. Oops. And this is where our H1 heading is going to be. Now for SEO, which allows Google to find your website and display it, you need an H1 element. So that way Google kind of knows what the primary purpose of your website is. So we're going to do an H1. Let's see what he said. Oh, I'm Ivan Dan. Okay. So let's just do, we'll just kind of copy it. I'm Tim Volner. There you go. And we're going to save that. We're going to see that pop up way up here. So our hero section content, we're going to create an app.css or a class in CSS. And we're going to set the width of this to, let's see. Actually, let's not set, well, let's set a width for our profile picture of, say, 30%. Oh, too small. Let's go 40%. Let's go 40% for now. And then we're also going to change we don't want the aspect ratio to change. And so we're going to do CSS image aspect ratio. There's another name for it. Trying to remember. Object fit. That's what I want. We're going to go object fit. We're going to tell it to cover. Now there's a few options here. There's going to be a scale down, fill, cover, contain. I'll let you do your own research on those. For this, we're going to do a, actually, we're going to do a contain, I think. Let's look. Okay. So without it, you'll see that it kind of stretches me out a little bit. And with it, it keeps the aspect ratio where it should. And now we have a definitive width for our profile picture. So now our hero section, we can set to 60%, which will fill up the other space that this leaves. And then a height again of 100. Let's go 80%. So it's about the same. And then our wrapper, we want to do the same thing where our content is centered. So we're going to do justify center. And then a align items center. Now it centers our content. Let's expand this a little bit. Should have it pretty well centered. So here's our hero wrapper. It actually is a little bit big. It's 800 pixels. So we need to change the max height or minimum height to probably 600. Now it's filling up the proper space. And then our content is centered within that space vertically. Okay. So now our hero section content, we want to do the same thing. We want to do a flex display with justified content. So that way it is centered. Let's take a look at our design. Okay, I'm Ivan Dan, and then some other content. So let's go ahead and add on H2 element. So it's slightly different than the H1. Let's set this to I'm a Python developer because I am also actually let's just do I'm a web developer. I am also a Python developer though. You'll see that has in a row, so I probably copied too much. Yeah, we want to get rid of flex direction on this one. Or we'll change that to column. And now it's top to bottom again. And as you can see, our stuff has some pretty big margins. That's okay, because we're going to make this a lot bigger. Now they have a pretty neat kind of contrasting font. My font is kind of using this blue color, which I don't know if I have the exact color offhand. We're going to the color hex. We're just going to find a contrasting color. Let's see how this looks for our H6. Now, for this, we're going to go ahead and just style the H2 element itself. So we're not going to add a class name to it. We're actually just going to do an H2 element with a color of that. And you can see it change the color of that. Okay. Now, most of their content is actually in this white with a couple of highlight colors. So we're going to copy that white we have. We're going to use this for actually the H1. Then our H2 element, we're going to have the same color as our menu buttons. And there we go. What else does he have? Python developer and ERP Next consultant. So you could just put something like expert web developer and AI guru. How about something like that? Okay. Again, as you can see, it doesn't really look like his does. His looks a lot nicer. And so we're going to do some styling to this now. First thing we're going to do is we are going to change the font size. Now let's see what the current font size is set to. In our inspect, we can click on it, and our font size is going to be 2EM. So we're going to set this to double that, 4EM. You can see it's much larger. And then our H2 element is going to be 1.5. So let's change that to 3EM. Save that. Okay, a little too large. So let's go down to say 2. Okay. And then let's clean up the margin so there's not so much space up there. So we're gonna go a margin of 15 pixels on both elements. Okay, let's drop that down a bit. Okay. So this is super simple. Again, I'm not going to go super complex with this, but it's a super simple start with it. And let's go ahead and start adding some fun content. I'm going to skip the about section because I think you guys have the tools now to be able to do that if you wanted to. I'm actually going to work on this skills section. So I have a bunch of icons already picked out. We're just going to kind of style this skills section on our website. So on our home.js, we're going to create a new content or a new section rather. Skills section content. Now this here is just a comment, so that way it kind of separates the code out and we know what section we're working on. We're gonna do a div. Class name is again going to be a skills section wrapper. Was that the div? And let's take a look here. So we want basically a couple of rows of 4 icons. So we're going to do a div with a class name of skills row. Now, let me see how many icons. I think I only have about 7 icons picked out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so we're going to do a row of 4 and a row of 3. Let me copy those icons to our assets folder. I'm going to leave it in the icons folder for now. So it's icons and assets. Okay. And let's go ahead and import all of those very quickly. So it's going to be css.png. Oh, actually just CSS icon. From assets / icons / css.png. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this. It's going to be our it's going to be React icon. And then our HTML icon. Oops. JS icon. Node icon. And then we'll change these. It's going to be download.png. It's a bad file name for that, but I'm going to leave it for now.
Never.
No. Screen. And Python. I'm going to save that. And then we're going to go ahead and add those. Now, as you can see, they have containers with a little image and then some text. And so we're actually going to create another div element that we're going to reuse called with a class name of skill. And then inside of that is going to be our image element. Source equals, so our first one is going to be just probably the CSS icon that we're importing, and class name equals skill or icon. Let's do that. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and copy this for the different ones that we have. So we have CSS, React, HTML, JS. And then, so that's going to be 4 in that row. And then we're going to copy all of this whole row. And we're going to create a second row that's going to have 3. So this is going to have our Node, Postgre, and Python icon. Node. Get rid of the 4th because we don't need that. And now if we save this, this is going to look like an absolute mess because none of this is styled yet. We've just kind of organized it and laid it out. So as you can see, it's just a big, huge mess. So let's go ahead and create the styling for the skills section wrapper. .skills section wrapper. Now I'm going to set this to the entire viewing window. So when a user scrolls to it, actually, no, I'm going to do a height of, let's do 600 px. Let's set that to a minimum height in case we need more. And then we're going to set the display to a flex. Now we want this flex direction to actually be a column because this is what's going to contain the rows of icons. Oops. Justify center and align center. Okay. And then we want to set up some code for our .skills row. This is going to take up a width of, we want to leave some padding on the edges and some padding in between the icons. And so let's do a width of 80%. And a margin left of 10% and a margin right of 10%. And we'll see how that looks. We may adjust that. And then we're going to do all the flex stuff again. We're going to add a flex direction of row because we want this to be our row of icons. And we're going to save that and see what's happening now. Okay, so not much because the icons are still huge. So let's create our skill element and then we'll adjust the image size. .skill. We're going to set a width of this to be 25% of the parent container. Actually, let's set this to 23% with a margin left of 1.5%. Actually, let's do, 1% and a margin right of 1%. We may adjust these margins, but this means that this skill is going to take up a total of 25% of the total width of these skills row. And then we want to add some padding in here of, say, 10%. And then let's go ahead and adjust our skill icon to be a width 100%, height 100%, object fit of cover or contain. Let's just see how this looks now. Okay, so we're still in a column when we should be in a row. So, oh, I forgot to delete the overwriting. Let's see, flex direction row. We may be taking up too much. Okay, so it isn't a column still. So let's do a quick inspect. So we have our section, which is gonna be a column flex direction. Then we have our skill row, which, let's see, that should be a flex direction of a row. Let's try getting rid of the column here because it might be inheriting it from the parent. That didn't do it either. Up, there we go. And then we want to justify a line inside of our skill element as well. We want this to be a column. Oops. So that shouldn't be messing with that. Okay, so our icons are still way too big. Let's take a look here at our skill. Okay, so our skill element is huge right now. Should only be 25% of the skill row, which should be a width of 80%. So let's see. Skill row. Okay. So let's bring these down a little bit. Let's go with 18%. Oh, I see. The skill icon is taking up 100% of the skill. That's why. Okay. So I'm going to undo that. And then we're going to change this to be, let's take a look here. So probably 30% of the width, maybe 40. I'm gonna say 30%. Save that. And then let's see. Still having some issues styling. Oh, I know why. All of these images are inside of one skill. So what I actually want, oops, is for each of these images to be in its own skill element. So let me set this up really quick. So I want something like this here. Let's see. Okay. This is gonna be a React, and then we have a HTML and JS. Okay, so now we can see those are separated, and we'll fix the size here in a second. And then we will fix it here as well. All right, and now we have a set of 4 and a set of 3 skills. Okay, so let's take a look here at what's happening. So our skill is taking up 25% of our width, which is good. These are actually getting a little wider, so we want to change that a little bit. So let's do a width of 19. Let's see. So as you can see here, we have a couple different rows. which is what we want. And then our skills on the second row are a little bit larger than they are in the first row. So I'm just looking to see. So let's change this to a max width. Might be because we're using a percentage based. It probably is. So let's change that to 23 VW and see what happens. Okay, not much. We'll leave that at percent. And then our image, we're going to set to, or our icon, we'll set to like a 50% width. Okay, why are those? Maybe because the padding. Padding is what's killing us. So let's do a 1% padding for now. And then we'll set our width back to 40% for the image. So now let's see, we have our skill. Okay, so now we need to set a height for the skill. So let's do a minimum width for pixel of let's do 120 px, and then we'll set a minimum height of 120 px as well. So we want these to be at least a somewhat of a square format. So you can see there now we have a square format, they all look the same. And then we're going to add in our text kind of like they have here. So we're going to go ahead and use the same as our menu text. We're going to use an H6. And do H6, and then this is going to be our CSS. I'm just going to copy that over each one. Oops. HTML. JavaScript. And then we've got Node.js. Postgres. And Python. We'll save that. And as you can see, we still haven't we don't have that fully formatted. Let's see. Oh, that's because we use a class name for our menu button text. So let's change something really quick. Oh, I've got a lot of questions. Let's see. Why would people develop their own website instead of using Shopify or Squarespace or WordPress? Okay, that's actually a great question. For simple websites, it's easiest probably to use WordPress. Where a lot of this comes into play is when you create complex websites. For instance, a website like the NFT crypto or the NFT rental site, dynamic websites that do things. So like YouTube is a dynamic website, Google is a dynamic website, Zoom or Behance, my apologies, is a dynamic website. Dynamic websites are typically best to be custom coded, where you have full control of everything on the back end. Sites like WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, you're really limited to drag and drop options, and you lose all the functionality possibilities that you would have with writing the code. And so when writing the code, you know, for a simple, like basic website, like even my own website, it doesn't need to be custom coded. I did my own website as a kind of an example of my work, not so much because it needed to be. But for complex websites, like trying to think of what I can, so here's a, let's see, Jackbox, no, Jack, there's a game I developed. There it is, Jackpot music games. I don't remember the exact URL, so I'm going to try to look it up. Jackpot music game. So like this is a website here, if it'll load, that was built with actually JavaScript almost entirely. And so this is the type of stuff that you can do when you know how to code in JavaScript and HTML and CSS, is this level of website where there's functionality. There's no games currently near me, but this is a website I've worked on also. So websites that you need a lot of functionality and user input, like if you want things to happen when a user does something, those are the types of functionality that I'm talking about that you would want a custom developed website. And so Facebook actually created React because Facebook wanted their own custom library. And so Facebook created ReactJs to use for Facebook. And Netflix uses, I believe, a little bit of ReactJS. There's a lot of different, so web applications where you need functionality, that's where you would do the high level coding kind of like this. Basic websites, you could totally get away with just a simple WordPress site. I'm not a fan of Squarespace because they limit you heavily. Same with Shopify. They all look templated and they're pretty limited. WordPress is decent, but for simplicity, if you're developing a complex website, JavaScript and HTML and CSS are really helpful to know. What time am I ending? I'm in the Pacific time, so we should be ending here in like I would say 6:45 Pacific time, which is in about 20 minutes. I keep pushing this off because I want to cover a few things. There's I want to finish the skills section, and then I'll show you kind of how to host the website. And we probably won't have much time after that. New Zealand time. Wow. Awesome. Okay. Well, you asked if it was ending at 5:20 or 5:30. So I'm assuming for you, this would be ending at 5:45 then. So is that 5:30 a.m. for you then? Or are you because you're not a full 24 hours ahead, are you? Probably. Okay. Oh, okay. 3:30 p.m. Okay, no worries, MD. I will talk to you later. And we have somebody else coming in here in a few minutes who will kind of share some things with you all as well about the actual class that's coming up in the summer. So let me get back to this. Let me finish the skills section, and then I'll show you guys how to host a website for pretty much free. And then I'll have my partner come in and kind of do some talking. And he'll be super duper fast. Okay. So let me get back to this. So let's see, H6. Okay, so we're going to copy some of the font styling from here. So we want people joining. Oops, we want to copy, not cut. Okay. And we want to come down to the skill. And now you can see that we have some cleaner styling happening. And then let's just get it towards below the icon. So to do that, again, we're going to do a flex direction column. Now this may mess up the other. Okay, that did it well, actually. And then let's change, let's see. Our skill icon, we want to get rid of any margin on it. I'm going to do a margin of 0 and a padding 0px. So we want to get the text a little bit closer to the skill. We also want to change the background color of the skill, so it kind of pops out a little bit like this. And so we're going to take our next shade down here. I want to set our background color to that. And then we want to set a border radius of, say, 10px. Let's go 20. Okay, nice rounded. Now we want all these to actually be the same height. So let's do let's set a forced height of 150 maybe. I think that'll work. And let's take a look here at what's causing these to be pushed down so much. Okay, so our H6 has a lot of margin on it. So we're going to set the H6. I don't think I've done it yet. So H6. margin top 0px and margin bottom 0px for now. We'll change that here in a moment. Actually, that didn't affect our menu. Okay. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of margin to the top now of and the bottom of 10px. Okay, so now it's a little spaced out, a little bit cleaner. And now let's add some margin on our rows really quick. Do a margin bottom of 20px maybe. And now we have a nice little skills section set up. Now, here's a cool thing that we can do for the skill. We can actually change it so when a user hovers over it, it does some cool things. So we're going to do a skill and then on hover, we're going to do a transform and we're going to scale it by let's say 1.1. And we're going to change the background color to a little bit lighter of a color when they hover over it. So we're going to choose the next color down. Save that. So now when a user hovers over it, you can see they kind of grow a little bit and they pop out at the user. It's a little bit more interactive. And so I think that's pretty close to all the time I have left for this section. So this was a super simple website. We've got a logo, a couple of menu items, a search button that currently doesn't anything, but we have the style there for it. And then we have a little bit of profile. Again, you can do a lot of customization here and kind of style this as you wish. And we have a nice little skills section that we created here. Now, for hosting this website, there's a couple free tools. Now, it's actually been a while, so I might have to, let's see. This window smaller. There's a site called Heroku that used to do it. I want to see if they still have a free tier. Okay, $5 and up per month. Okay, so GitHub actually has a tool that we can use. So I'm gonna go to my GitHub and we're gonna create a new repository. So I'm gonna call this let's see, let's go Bethel workshop portfolio. And then if any of you want access to this repo, let me know. And I can share this. I'll actually go to make it public. So it'll be on my GitHub just a second. So create, and I'll show you how to access that in a moment. So we're going to stop this. One thing we're going to do to create the files for the website is we're going to run yarn build. This is going to compile them into more production style files. So if we go to our portrait, now we see a build folder, and that'll have all of our public files in it for actually hosting the website. And then we're going to do a git init. We're going to get this up on GitHub really quick. Oops. Oh, I need to git add first. So we're just going to kind of copy through all of this. And once we're done, we should be able to see our code files on GitHub. So if we refresh now, we now have all of our files here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to code. And we're going to go to code spaces. We're going to create a code space here. Now it's been a second since I've done this, so it may take me a second to remember exactly how to do this. Let's see. Yeah, Visual Studio is going to be a pretty large workspace. For Chromebook, I would recommend actually seeing if you could download Atom, and I'll see if I can find you a download link here in a second. Because Atom is a pretty lightweight thing, but yes, Chromebooks have very little space, and so they can kind of be difficult to work with. So let's go to Atom IDE and see if I can get you a download link. So we go to Atom here. It's not quite what I'm looking for. previous version of Atom. Okay, I'm going to share this link in the chat. So in here, you'll look for the right package for a Chromebook. Now it's probably going to be, my guess is going to be this x86 underscore 64. Actually, Chromebook's probably a 32-bit. This may work. You may have to try a few of these, but I believe you'll be looking for this x84 or x86 64 installation package. You can try one of the executables, but you can also write code in like Notepad, but it's just not as easy to use. Can you use these skills for coding an app? Yes. So we have ReactJs, and we also have something called React Native. React Native allows you to use similar code to your React website. It's a little bit different of styling, but it's the same kind of format. And this will actually allow you to create a mobile application. And I've created a few of them this way. So if you're interested in mobile apps, look into React Native. Okay, in Chrome, let's see. I'm sure Chromebooks are meant for running Chrome. Yeah, they also can run some other things though. Okay, so in our GitHub workspace, I'm gonna go, let's see where. I believe we're gonna just go ahead and run a yarn start. Let's see what happens if we just do that. Okay, so yarn start, now we have this URL. Let's see if it loads. Okay, now our website is at this link. So if you guys go to this link, let me see if I can modify. Probably not with GitHub. So I'm going to copy this link for you guys, and you guys can actually see, if you guys paste this link in the browser, you should be able to see this link or this website now live on your browser. Now, when you go to release an actual website, you'll probably have to pay for it. There are free few hosting tools, but I recommend DigitalOcean. It's a great tool. You can get a server for I think like $5 or $10 a month. Let me see. Create app, and we're gonna create. I don't have it linked on here. Let's see, React. Let's see what this pricing is. Okay, so it's about $12 a month with DigitalOcean to host a website.